Are you tired of always using the same scales, chords and ideas when you're playing guitar, especially when you're trying to write your own stuff? If that's the case, you came to the perfect place today. I want to show you two awesome and really helpful systems today that will make it easy for you to get creative using exotic sounds and scales. To make all of this very practical and useful for you, we will write two quick songs together, one in harmonic minor and one in Hungarian minor. Two really awesome exotic sounding metal scales that you should use much more often. And after watching today's video until the end, it will be easy for you to apply these concepts to any kind of scales you want to work with. So let's get started right away. So the first system and the by the books approach, so to say, would be writing down the scale that you want to work with. And then you're building the chords on every single scale degree by adding the third, fifth and also the seventh if you want to every single scale note, only using notes we can find within the scale. Let's go with G harmonic minor for the first chord composition. So in this scale we have the notes G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, F sharp, and I know that it looks weird to mix sharps and flats like that, but in the key signature for G minor we have two flats, B flat and E flat, and in comparison to the G minor scale only one note changes right here. We have to raise the seventh note, so F turns into F sharp. Up next you're just adding the third and fifth to every single note in the scale, only using notes that you can find in the scale. So for example, for the first note in the scale, for G, we're adding B flat as the third and D as the fifth. And since that is a minor third and a perfect fifth, we have a G minor chord on the first scale degree. The interesting thing that happens right here is that we get a really cool chord when we add the seventh as well. When we add the seventh note in the scale to this chord, F sharp, we get a G minor major seventh chord, since it's a G minor chord with a major seventh. So when we continue to add the third, fifth and seventh to all of those scale notes, we get the following chords. We have a G minor major seventh chord on the first scale degree, an A minor 7 flat 5 chord on the second scale degree, a B flat major 7 sharp 5 chord on the third scale degree, a C minor 7th chord on the fourth scale degree, a D7 or D dominant chord on the fifth scale degree, an E flat major 7th chord on the sixth scale degree, and an F sharp diminished 7th chord on the seventh scale degree. So those are the seventh chords of the G harmonic minor scale that I can work with for my composition. So to finally get started with the creative process, I could combine those chords and see what kind of cadences I can come up with. So one thing I really want to include in my composition right away, the cool sound of that minor major 7th chord on the first scale degree that immediately gives away the sound of harmonic minor. One easy trick that you can use to immediately get that sound is just using that G power chord with the octave on top and then switching that to the major 7th interval, so from G to F sharp. That immediately gets you that cool sounding dissonance. Another detail that I really want to take advantage of is that we have an augmented chord on the third scale degree in harmonic minor. In our case that's B flat augmented, so really cool and dissonant sound. And the great news with that kind of voicing is that you can move it symmetrically in major thirds, just like you can move diminished shapes symmetrically in minor thirds. So I can just move this voicing up like that, for example. So the shape always stays the same and I can just move it up in major thirds. So as you can see, we can work with tons of very interesting, exciting and dissonant sounds, but things won't get too crazy for the listener since we're not just randomly putting those dissonant sounds together, we're still working with a harmonic framework right here. So I think I will go for an idea like that, starting off with the tonic with G minor. Then adding the major 7th to that to get that minor major 7th sound, and then moving to those augmented kind of voicings. Let's get a basic drum beat down just to get inspired for our main riff. Okay, so that's a pretty cool pattern we have right here. I just want to make it a bit more dynamic with the accents. Let's have a listen. Maybe with heavier accents on the... Yeah, maybe we need another accent right here. That would be pretty cool, I think. I'm already hearing the chords changing right here on the 4 and not always on the 1 of every new measure. So I think that would be a bit more interesting. So let's copy that one once again. And yeah, let's just loop it and listen to it real quick. Yeah. So programming a basic drum layer like that not only helps me with playing in time when I'm recording my rhythm guitars, it also really helps with getting more creative concerning the patterns that I'm playing. So now I was just practicing the idea and I was defining where the down and up strokes are located within the pattern so that I'm playing it consistently every single time. As always, you can download the tabs and get the profiles of everything that I'm playing in this video on patreon.com/BERNTH. You very special guys and girls on Patreon also voted for this video topic, that's why I'm recording it right now. So in case you also want to decide on what we discuss next and download the tabs, get the profiles, video player alongs and backing tracks for all of the videos that I post on YouTube, make sure to join us in the shred guitar community over there today. So let's get some tight takes of this idea. Once again, I'm looping the section here in Cubase and I'm just looping it until I'm happy with the takes that I'm getting. And usually I record until I have 2 takes that I really like in a row so that I can pan them left and right. Okay, so now I recorded a couple of takes. And for a pre-production that's more than enough for me, so we can just take 2 takes that we really liked and then we can just loop them. Okay, so that works for now. Let's also get a basic bass line for that. Once again, we're programming the bass. I'm sorry, I still don't have a really good bass at home, so I'm just programming a basic MIDI track. Then we have 16th notes right here, followed by 8th notes, so the pattern should be correct now. Nice evil sounding bass line. It's really simple, just the root notes of the chords, but for now it works. Let's listen to everything played at the same time. Okay, so now that we have the rhythm tracks down, we should also include some shredding, of course, since it's this channel. And the great news with that composition is that I already know which kind of scale could work pretty well over a composition in G harmonic minor. It might be the G harmonic minor scale. And just to accent the chords a little bit, I also want to include some small augmented triads or arpeggios in there. Let's see what I can come up with. Okay, now I got a couple of takes of this idea. Let's see which one sounds best for our little song. Okay, so I think I like this take best. Yeah, just to turn it into a short little song, we will start out just with the riff. And then we'll make some small changes with the drums as soon as the guitar solo hits. Yeah, I think that's the right choice. I like that a lot. And then we're gonna need a fill just to move into the guitar solo. Yeah, I think that works. Okay, so now let's take a listen to what we came up with by using the first method, writing down the scale, identifying the chords on every single scale degree, working with cadences, and of course with the scale itself for the guitar solo. Yeah, sounds pretty good for a rough pre-production. That's just a demo. But as you can see, this way of composing in odd kind of keys and with exotic scales is really effective and fast. We worked with tons of interesting and dissonant sounds and chords, but it still sounds harmonically connected, awesome, and not just like throwing random chords and ideas together. Alright, now let's discuss the second method that you can use to easily come up with really cool material in exotic keys and scales. This one is for you in case you don't really want to work with chords and cadences that much, and if you want to focus more on riffs and intervals, which is much more common for rock and metal music. Let's go with the E Hungarian minor scale for the next composition. This one is even more exotic than the harmonic minor scale. We have the following notes in the E Hungarian minor scale: E, F sharp, G, A sharp, B, C and D sharp. And yes, I said A sharp instead of B flat because we have a sharp 4 in the scale structure. So compared to the natural minor scale, we're not only raising the 7th note to get harmonic minor, we're also raising the 4th note. So this time, instead of writing down the scale and forming the chords on every single scale degree, we're just gonna look at the scale diagram all across the neck, just like you can see it on screen. And we are looking for interesting structures in there to come up with some really cool riffs. This particular scale diagram is really helpful because you can see all the intervals that you're playing. You can also pick one that shows you the notes of the scale that you're playing all across the neck, but maybe try to avoid scale diagrams where you just see the dots and where you have to put your fingers across the neck. You won't really learn that much with those. So the interesting thing I can see with this scale is that we have an almost chromatic sounding sequence down here. So I definitely want to work with that for my riff, and the second cool thing I can see about this is that we have those perfect fourths that are quite symmetrical down here. That sounds pretty evil, and we also have major thirds just a half step away from each other, so there are a lot of interesting intervals that I can use in there. So let's get creative immediately and let's see what we can come up with. I think I want to go with triplets this time. And as always, I'd like to program drums first, just to get a feeling for the rhythm and for what I want to do on the guitar. And yeah, let's go with the classic. Let's go with double bass in 8th note triplets. And we want a crash on the accent and maybe just snare on 2 and 4. The tempo is 180 beats per minute, so it's quite fast. And then let's just do some interesting accents with the right maybe. Oops, that's not the right, it's a tom. That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, and I'm looping it. Let's see what I can come up with. Yeah, I think something like that would be pretty cool. Just alternating between two different endings, taking advantage of those perfect fourths. And also including those major thirds. Once again, that sounds pretty crazy, those intervals combining them, but it doesn't really sound like random stuff. It still sounds like a connected harmonic system, since we are basing our ideas on a scale and not just randomly throwing notes and intervals together. Now let's get some better takes. Okay, I played a couple of takes once again. Let's see if we find two takes that we really like. Okay, I think that works pretty well. Of course, we need our bass. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Now let's see what happens when we add a lead track to that, working with the E Hungarian minor scale. Let's see what we can come up with. Okay, so I tried out a bunch of different ideas and takes, and this is what I like best so far, because the riff is already really busy and shredding over that wouldn't really do us any good in the arrangement. One thing that we can do is harmonize it just a little bit to make it more interesting, just in the beginning for those long notes. So just to double that, I'm only using octaves here, nothing too crazy, because it's already quite crazy. And then I'm just lowering the volume of that track. So that it just shines through a little bit, just complementing that main melody we have going on right here. Okay, so now let's listen to the whole thing. That's another pretty nice demo that would go right into my pre-production folder where I'm gathering ideas. And as you can see, that is an equally powerful system of just experimenting with odd kind of sounds and scales and seeing what you can come up with when you look at the scale diagram. So this is a lot of fun if you're just starting to explore a new sound or a new scale and you don't really know it that well across the fretboard yet. That way you get to be creative right away and you get a bit of a feeling for the sound and what you can do with that kind of scale. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video about composition and about working with exotic scales in the context of rock and metal music. Don't forget to download your tabs, get the profiles and backing tracks for this lesson on patreon.com/BERNTH. Over there you can also download these extremely helpful files for every single video that I published on YouTube so far. And we also have a secret VIP Facebook group where we are discussing exercises, practice concepts, practice routines, and members are posting videos of their progress constantly. So that's the perfect practice environment for you in case you need some motivation or some input on your technique or theory skills. In the end, make sure to subscribe to stay updated, that way you'll never miss another video again. Leave a like in case you enjoyed that one and a comment in case you have any questions. I hope I will see you again in the next video. I have a lot of fun working with exotic scales and keys until then.